it's hard to gauge and understand 21 days at sea, going upwind in storm conditions and heavy wind. So there is an element of just live day by day or hour by hour, and don't try and think about the distances. Once you get over the halfway mark, you know, you're on the downhill side of it. For the start itself, there was a plan to push hard for the first 4 or 5 days. Now the logic behind that was that I would still be close enough to land that if I did damage or break something, that I could retire to Ireland or the coast of England. But once beyond that, I knew I was going to have to throttle back at the boat. So our course ended up going north because it looked like there was a bit more wind up that side of the course, and the general flow was going to be shortest route, go north, try and ride round the top of the lows or ride through the middle of the lows, and it was the fastest and most efficient course.
We're getting up to the 8th of June now, which is a pretty fateful day for a few boats. So we just have a look at here. So this is BAM doing okay, and these guys are all starting to head very far south all of a sudden, and this is indicative. This is over here now, we can actually look at the weather they're in, and this is the low pressure forming. This is a really extremely 982, very, very deep low, and this is the hurricane forming. So the weather router here you can see is saying, you know, come on Conor, head off here at a nice reach. At this moment in time, Conor was under bare poles doing 15 knots, dead downwind here, so he was heading south, and so you can see him over here on the tracker, he's heading south, whereas the router's saying head north. This thing just doesn't live in the real world. It's a good indicator of what you should be doing, but the real world took over here as Conor was under bare poles. So we can see the other boats around here as we animate this on a little further, all start going in strange, crazy directions, because this has now turned into a hurricane.
Nobody was actually expecting it, for the pressure to drop that much and to become such an extreme storm. I was expecting 28 knots of breeze. I ended up with, you know, in the mid-50s at one stage when it should have been 28 knots of breeze. So none of the fleet were expecting that to be as deep a depression as it was. I was very lucky with BAM that there was not really that much physically broken her. I was very concerned at times because the sea states were massive at some times, and that's what I believe caused more damage in the fleet. It wasn't the winds, it was the sea state that was left from the winds. And when I was racing against a Lumiere 12, that was after the storm, and she hit a UFO, but at that time we were fairly close to one another and we were coming off waves, and I just remember thinking, bam, she'd hit another ton of bricks as she came off the wave. You free fall down, smack, and you'd be just thinking, is she going to stay together? You know, am I going to structurally damage this boat? But I was amazed, very little breakage on BAM, which is stands for her. I have been in worse conditions in the past, but I have spent a long time doing this, and you can't do the amount of miles I do without getting caught out.
Nights and mornings last night, just totally out of sync with everything. About halfway across the Atlantic at the moment, and just my sleep patterns, my organisation, just everything out of sync, everything going wrong. You know, at least we're in shape now and we're underway, but bit of a disaster last night and this morning. Lost a lot of miles because of it. Hi guys, how's it all going? King Citric, good? Yeah, this is day 14 at sea. Survived the storm, and all's good on board. I did hear a boat sank and another one lost its mast, and possibly one or two other retirements. I think I just caught the edge of it. I was slightly in front, good 50 knots, but rumour has it that the rest of the guys got 60 knots or so. Obviously I don't get that much information sent to me, so I'm just kind of picking up from where I can.
The The 30 knot barrier is the cut-off point for BAM, where it becomes survival mode and racing mode, and because it was up in the 35s, I'm pretty much into survival mode, or on the edge of racing mode, so it was quite hard after a hard storm to psych yourself up to get back into racing mode. So I did run off on the wind for a while, when I should have been sailing up about 30 degrees higher on my course, but I felt that I wasn't mentally or physically able to at that stage.
So now we're just sun shining, 30 odd knots of breeze, almost on the right course. Might have missed the worst of it, I hope.
So the last part of the race, after the hurricane was over, there's very little to do, and Conor really got into a psyche of survival. He had been through real survival, but now it was about getting BAM to survive the race. It was about finishing and finishing safely.
Offshore racing. The bed, plastic to stop the water pissing on everything, dinner, loads of wind, beautiful music. Hey, you need to be fucking crazy to do this shit. Look at those bubbles go. Wow. It's only been like this for about 3 hours. I'm driven nuts trying to figure it out. So just point the boat in the right direction and hope for the best. Frustrating moments. There's no wind, doing no speed, not able to go the right way. Tired, I want to go to bed but I can't because the wind's just going to keep changing. Yeah.
So the next big mark in the race for me was the 1,000 miles to go. I hadn't really been focusing on the numbers up to that point, but I knew once I went under 1,000 miles the race was almost over. I was into 5, 6, 7 days. The last few days turned out to be the hardest. There was heavy fog, there was lots of fishing boats around, there was counter currents. It was very challenging mentally and from a navigational perspective, and I was tired and I just wanted to finish the race.
Coming into the last 500 miles or so of mad race. The boat sank and the mast came down, and hurricane force winds and gales and mammoth seas, and still somehow we might just be in first. So enjoying the moment. Still a few days to go, but it's going to be light for a while and then it should be a reach in. Touch wood, no problems. But what do they say? Into the OSTAR legends.
What happens next in the story of sailing with Conor Fogerty is, I don't know, my mind hasn't really got back into gear yet after the OSTAR. It was a huge achievement to finish that race in such successful fashion and good fashion. The current boat BAM, that is the maximum she can do. So what happens next in single-handed development? I have to sit down with my supporters and sponsors and move forward with them to look for bigger sponsors, international companies that are interested in bringing it to the next level. The next level is big budget stuff, big boats, the Formula One of single-handed racing, possibilities of the Barcelona World Race or the Vendée Globe in 2020 would be the perfect scenario.